I guess in no particular order. The first question was like a pebble shape, or that I just got from Giovanna. I don't know the best way to do this. Maybe I'll try and just open it up. So the shortest answer to the question is, if you're trying to make like kind of like a river stone or a pebble, it can be a bit, there's obviously like different ways to approach that. The simplest way to do it would be with this dome command. And if you simply apply it to a surface, it will give you kind of this curvature. You can set the height, type it in here, and this will get you kind of a river stone shape very simply. If you get this kind of, like I called this like squircle shape. So I don't know, maybe let's set this all to be for construction. Get some curves on here. Again, if I'm building like a really simple river stone, this is one way to approach it. Now you could just fillet these edges and put a dome and we can see what it looks like. Now the dome feature is somewhat limited. It might just peak in the middle, which might be a bit funny looking. You know, depending, actually, probably the bigger these corner fillets are, the better the pebble feature will look, or the dome feature will look, rather. So you can see on a face this big, it becomes really subtle. So you have to bump this up. So you can see the problem with the dome feature is it tends to flatten out at the edges here. So you can play with a height that makes sense. I think something subtle that you then go and fillet this edge, some combination of both will get you is the simplest way to get a pebble feature. Now I don't want to get into it, but really the proper way to get the pebble feature would be to do it with a loft. So just like we learned with the knob, you could have your shape here, arc this to whatever intersection point you have. Again, everyone, please do not forget to make things in the middle tangent if you're dealing with halves and stuff. If you want this point to intersect this edge, the option here would be pierce. And you could simply make this shape here, make a similar shape on the right plane, and loft it through a quarter, just like the knob demo. Does that make sense? But if you want to go the quick dome fillet method, that's okay. Yeah, some general feedback on the homework. I downloaded it and I just glanced at a couple files. I tried to look at one file per person. All the rules from project 1 are still important. So here we're looking at Giovanna. She has a master sketch. I do want to see master sketches. At least it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be as nuanced and dimensioned as project 1 and like editable. But as long as you have a sketch that represents a master and have things point to it, I will give you credit, okay? Another difference from project 1 though, that's a similarity. A difference from project 1 is you do not need a reference image. That's no longer a requirement for this project. So I did notice some of you didn't have master sketches. If you want to go and fake one in after the fact, please do it. I'll give you points. By fake one in, I mean like, technically you should have things point to it, but at the very least, create a sketch that's like that the first feature copies, and that would count as a master sketch. Is that clear? That was my biggest concern that I saw in multiple files, was not everyone had master sketches. So I wanted to mention that. Okay, moving along. Alex, yeah, please go for it. Yeah. Which file is that? And that's the handle we're looking at? Okay. I'm happy to answer this now. Okay, if I were making a master sketch of this, I'll just show you what I would probably do. I'm approaching this file. my master sketch would probably look something like, because you can, this should be just a single revolve, shouldn't it? I got you. So here's what, this is how you would create this. This is how I would create this master sketch. So think back to like day 2 when I had you all make those like the D shape and the B shape. As long as you make this tangent to this. Now obviously there becomes a bit of an issue down here because of how this is overlapping. So this would be for construction. If that's my master sketch on my front plane, when I click on this and click convert entities, I'm clicking trim and trimming these two out. And as long as you have this tangent and this midpoint on this line, now if you revolve this, you should have a nice smooth shape. Does that make sense? No, it's fine. Sometimes I realize there's a lot of barriers here. You're trying to figure out the program and figure out what you want to get to, and you're trying to put those things together. But that's why I'm happy for these times to figure this out. Since we're looking at your work now, the other question was handles and how tall to make them. So for what it's worth, for the renders, and we'll get into this on Wednesday, but I'm totally fine with some kind of hero shot like this. The door doesn't need to be open. They can be closed in all of your renders. That said, it's really not hard to make the door open. If you want to add a secondary render or show it open, that would be cool. So now if I just take this side view, there's all these settings up here that turn things on and off. So here perspective is off. Someone was asking about the reflective floor. I believe that you can turn it on up here. My SolidWorks is the most basic version, and I believe the student version might be slightly more advanced, where you can. It's called Real View is the setting, which I don't have. But anyway, if you want floor reflections, look through these up here. You may find it. Okay, let's get this measurement. I'm going to measure from this bottom foot to this door. Alt-M is how you get the measure tool if you want to use it, or it's under Tools. And I'm getting a height of 2.64 inches. So from this foot that I made. So 6'4". Let's just say anything, I won't be this strict, but if you want a rule, we can say that the handle needs to be from its mounting point from the glass, it should not be taller than 3 inches. 3 inches is the max. I'll maybe start taking points off at like 4, or if it's like obnoxious. You were asking about the size of the foot. This foot is 0.8 inches tall by a diameter of 1.2 inches. So I would say shoot for anything within about a cubic inch for a foot. I would say in the right path. Thanks, Bryce. Okay, moving right along. We're running low on time. I assumed Bryce was closing the door, but maybe not. He's going to join in the... The diameter for the foot is 1.2 inches here. So again, if you're looking, thanks Bryce, if you're looking for a general size for your foot, keep it to like 1 cubic inch, plus or minus a quarter inch is what I would say. Okay, moving on. I just want to look at Alex's here because I thought that was a good question. Family 3 feet, I'm assuming. Yeah. Let's see how you built this. No, this is great. You broke it into 2 sweeps. Okay, while I'm thinking about this, I thought I mentioned it, but I just want to make it clear. For project 2, there needs to be, correct me if I'm wrong, but there needs to be at least 1 sweep and at least 1 loft. But I'm wondering now if I said more than 1. That's okay, I've said 1 now, that's what it is. Okay, so across the whole project, you have 9 files plus the toaster 10. In the 9 files, give me at least 1 sweep and 1 loft, okay, to verify. The way you did this, Alex, to break it up into 1 sweep followed by another sweep is not wrong. Now, what I'm curious about, oh, interesting. That's clever. I got you. So check this out. I believe if you just take this, I'm going to break all these relationships here, and just scooch this over to the left, it'll still sweep. So this is the guide path. Now you followed the advice of sweeps, which is to always have it centered on the profile path. But if you're just looking for a quick move something over, I literally took your sketch on this plane. If I turn sketches on, it was attached here, and I literally just dragged it to the left. Here, I'll repeat exactly what I did. It looks to me like you had this as a convert entities. If you have something that's convert entities and you click on this sketch, you can see that the rules are saying it's on the edge. That's what this little box means. It means it's converted, it's attached. If I click on this and click on the little box and hit delete, it turns it blue. I've deleted that rule. Another way to do that would be to select this, click on this rule on edge here, and say delete, and now it's blue. And now because you have it over, you can just slide it over. And now it will follow this profile and be off to the side. For what it's worth, if you did not do that, a better way to do what you did, I mean, I applaud you for ingenuity in figuring that out, would be to look for the move. I guess this is all new to everyone. So move body is a good command to have up here. You simply can select a body and you can drag it or type in a number on one of these axes. And that would be the more ideal way to do what you did. Okay, but this is still off topic. Again, your approach is not wrong. What I was starting to describe before, and so this will be new to everybody, but this is the best way to do a complex sweep. I'm going to put a curve on here. A for the arc. Drop this in here, select this, and just tell it to be tangent. And then just simply extrude this. I don't want to merge in this instance. I'm just showing you a sweep demo. Put a fillet here. This is, if we're going with terms we've talked about, this is half a baseball. You got this sweep here. If this was filleted here, that'd be a full baseball. So I'm going to make a sketch on this face. So this is a technique that some people do in SOLIDWORKS where they use like a dummy body just for construction purposes. We're going to get rid of this body eventually. But now I have this, and you can see I have this path that I want the foot to take. So if I exit out of the sketch and I go to features and go to sweep, it loaded that sketch for me because I was selecting it already. But if for some reason it wasn't in there, I can drop this down and select it or view it. Now when it comes to this here, I believe you need to right click on this first and say selection manager. So this is brand new to all of you. I think I've explained this to only one of you that had an individual question. If you're ever looking to select a bunch of disjointed things as like one guide curve for a loft or one guide curve for a sweep, it is a right click and selection manager. And it should default to this icon, select group. And you'll notice now as I click along, it stays pink. I want to show you something. If I select a gap in here, do you see these two things? That's telling me there's a gap in my path. Sometimes you'll have like incredibly small gaps, so pay attention to these little pins if you see them. I click that, they disappear. And I click here. You'll notice that the pins are still on the, there's still a pin there, but it's okay, it's completed. I'm going to click check. And now I have this all in one sweep going all the way around. The key when you're using a body like this is to make sure under options to uncheck merge result. Because now you don't need this body, you can hide it. Or if it really bothers you, if you simply select the body from the tree here, the dummy body, and click delete, it will actually load a command called delete keep body. And it puts it in the tree as a command. Sometimes it's useful before you go into render something in Keyshot is putting a delete body at the end of any of your trees for things you don't need. Does that make sense? It's all recorded so you can all refer to this later. Timer telling me I need to wrap this up. Let's see what other questions I have. Scale, grips, and tangency are the other notes that I have. So if I go back to my toaster here, please, everyone just double check your handles. If this sweep here, if this is not tangent, this or this is not tangent to this, I reserve the right to take off points, all right? So just double check your work. That's what that note means. Double check scale. So I know, if I just, it first came up with Matthews. Do you remember which knob that was, Matthew? It's all right. No worries. I picked one at random. It'll be a 1 of 3 guess. That one was too big? I thought that one looked fine. I mean, here's another simple way to do this, actually. This is probably the simplest thing to do with scale. Is just drop it into the toaster. And if it looks ridiculous, go in and scale it down. I think I said it in the demo, but I'll say it again. If you go to Insert Component, anytime you see this pin in SOLIDWORKS, if you click it, it means keep this here. So that if you want to put this knob, it doesn't disappear. I can keep adding things. Now, these diameters don't need to match. Fine, because you can still mate it. But yeah, that would prevent the door from opening. You know what? But this will transition us nicely into the next part, which is adjustments. Also think about the knobs, how close they are to each other. Okay. So I'm gonna just run with this, and we'll go right into the transition. So let's say you all need to modify this toaster, okay, to match your product language. The main difference between, there's going to be there's many differences between today and a week from today when the project is due. One obvious difference is a week from today it's going to be a rendering, so you will have material to help you. Now keep in mind the way that this is set up in your render, your feet are going to be less visible. Today, the way that you displayed it all, it made it really clear and easy to see. There will be a little bit more obscured on a week from today. So I don't know, that could hurt you, could help you. It could go either way. Main takeaway is it's mainly going to be the handles and the knobs that will be compared to each other. And the toaster, of course. Again, please don't overlook the toaster. So this is what I want you to start to think about. So I'll start here as a transition. These knobs are too close to each other. It prevents the door from opening. Let's open this toaster up and we'll look at it. Part of SOLIDWORKS is learning how to work with other people's files and edit them. I tried to set this up in as simple a way as I can. I tried to set it up in a way that I might approach it if I were building it and needing to edit it. But try and look at the file and work with it. My advice to you, the best way to work on a file is I would open it up just like this. Save it as a copy, so save as, and I'm going to say, whatever. And now, actually what I really should have done is save as, copy, and open is the better setting here. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to open that original file right now as well. So Toaster 2020. And the reason why it helps to have a copy and have the original open is if something breaks in the one you're editing, you can then check what it was in the original and use that as a fix. So a reminder to everyone that there's this blue bar at the bottom. It has a name, I think it's called the rebuild bar, but you can simply drag this all the way to the top to make edits or to work within any point of the tree. So let's see with our issue here, the knobs need to be wide. So here from the master panel, if you edit this sketch, you can see down here, hey, look, there's a dimension that's setting this width. I forget what size the knobs were. They're pretty big. Let's just make that 3. Now that gap just got wider. One change at a time. That's another way to do this, is just start simple. You don't necessarily have to drag this up. I could have done this without doing that. And now you can see the door got way narrow. The problem here, though, is if you go too far with this, now the rack's probably going to be too wide, if I'm honest. But we can go check what happened in the assembly. You can see it updates, and now the knobs fit on there. You can see the problem, though, with this rack, right? Now it's crashing into here. So that means you may need to open up the rack file and change that distance. So be aware that some of those changes will affect that. If I go back here and do the in-class edit, let's see if there's another way to do this so you don't have to edit the rack. Oops, not that one. So this was set to 1.75 before. So a better way probably for me to have dimension this, I'll be honest, would have been deleting this and actually dimensioning this here, because this is what the rack and the burners are set to. So now this is driving that. Let's see if we can make the toaster, overall toaster wider. So from this front view, to get the knobs to fit, could we just change this to be something a lot bigger, like 17? And you know what, could you make this even up 17? And let's just see what happens now, if it rebuilds or not. So there you go. Now this is the same width. This got way wide. So that's another way to do it, make the overall dimension wider. But now you'll notice some things failed in here. Once again, this is where it's useful to, now that I have this other one open, I can say like, okay, extrude one failed. So let me go back here. Extrude one failed. What does extrude one do? Okay, it's a straight line. Let's go back here and see what extrude one does in this one. This is where the rollback bar is useful, because I can roll up to extrude one, cut extrude one. I can take a front view here, and I can kind of see what is this doing. Okay, it's a cut. Before it, what happens? It's straight. It goes from a straight to a cut. Now, because we changed our model to be vertical, our cut doesn't do anything. Some of this stuff is somewhat nuanced. Here's another way. I'll give you another way to fix an error. You see something like this, you can right click on it, maybe save first, but hit suppress. And see if anything else blows up. Nothing else blows up, it looks fine. Obviously we lost 2 fillets. This should be obvious. This is a hard edge. Fillet 10 and fillet 12. This is where it's useful to go back and look at this file. And if you scroll down beyond them, you can click on them and see, okay, fillet 10 was this big edge running all the way around. Fillet 12 was this little edge on the inside. So go back to this file here. We lost those. You can always, if you want, you can always right click on this and say edit. It'll tell you it's missing an edge. It should also sometimes show you with a dotted red line where it was, but you can simply reselect the edge and click check. And now you can right click on this and say unsuppress. And now it's back in there. Does that make sense? Really, most of the changes you need to make to this toaster, you should be able to do with these master sketches. If you have individual questions for me, I'm happy to help you. Some simple things you can change is like, it's not a requirement to make all the changes in the master sketch. Let's say you have a really soft object. So from this side view, I can simply edit this sketch here. This is where the replace entities command does work. If you recall, it was a kind of a train wreck when I tried to introduce this to you all on SOLIDWORKS Day. The mistake that I made is I thought that replace entities translated from the master to other sketches. I do not believe it does. The way to use this would be, for example, in this instance, if you wanted to have a dome top to your toaster, this is now a good time to use this. Now again, for clarity, this is not in the master sketch, this is in the boss extrude one. So I'm going to click on replace entity. I want to replace this straight line with this curved one, and do you want it to delete or do you want it to be a construction? I would say make construction is safer, because then you at least keep the line. You check this box, it turned this to construction. The reason why this is now important is now any fillets that were on this back corner, it will remember them and still apply them. You can see it only put it on this side edge here. So apparently what you would need to then do is on this boss extrude too. Edit this sketch. Now here is because it's not in the master, it's only in this one. Okay, we're getting into some maybe slightly confusing things. You want to get the arc from this sketch. So here in this sketch, this is something that you can take from this. So if I had to like right click on this and make it visible because it's naturally invisible. I can select this arc, convert entities to copy it. And now I can do the same thing. Replace entity. I'll show you what happens if you don't do replace entity. I'll just say for construction. It's not the end of the world. It's going to give me an error because SolidWorks, while it does a lot of things intelligently, what happened is it lost this fillet. It's probably one of these, and it's saying, hey, we can't find that. That's why it may be after the fact now. If I Control Z back to this. So again, back to this stage. I'm going to copy this over so it matches. We're kind of using this as a supplement for a master sketch in this instance. And now again, I'm going to go replace entity. And we want to replace this straight one with this curved one. Check that box. Hopefully, now you can see it maintained that fillet because you use that command. That's how that command works. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. Other things that students have wanted to do in the past is make this front straight, this front face straight. I believe you can do that here on the side. So if you edit this sketch, you want this front face to be straight. Okay, the bottom says this is 9. Well, firstly, let's make this 90 degrees so this is straight up and down. And this is 9. Let's just make this 9 and see if that works. Now you have a box. Again, what's going to happen? Something failed. The fillet failed. Not too bad. This fillet failed because now we no longer have a corner on the front. If you recall originally from this side view, there was a kink here. It's gone. So again, same thing. If you're not sure how to fix an error, try suppressing it. Now, sometimes what may happen when you suppress it is you may get a bunch of things suppressed underneath it. That means that a lot of features were relying on that. If that's the case, unsuppress or Control Z and go back. But simply, you can kind of suppress these errors and just go in and look for missing edges that need fillets and just add them in. That's another way to do it. Now, for what it's worth, when I grade this, I am looking at tree efficiency. I do not want to see any suppressed commands. Simply, if the suppression is there and you don't need it, before you turn it in, please just go through and hit delete and click yes. Okay, just to clean it up. If you have any hanging sketches that don't need to be there, delete them. Keep your tree as clean as possible for me. In the grand scheme of things, not a big deal. Again, it's all my goal to form good habits in all of you. You always want clean files if you're working with other people. Did this demo kind of make sense? Yeah.
Just a question. So I gotta imagine when you're like reconfiguring to like how you want your general form to look like a lot of the fillets and all the other like features that you want us to like go back and try to connect it to the master, not even master sketch, but just a general way where we're connecting to file now, like someone comes here where say this one is the project, should we just as we go, as long as it looks good.
For this project, I think the exercise of fixing my work and just getting it to work however you can is acceptable. The goal here is just to learn how to work with someone else's file. It's not necessarily to leave it in good shape for someone else to work on it, especially with the toaster. My change requirements for the toaster, if you guys want specific rules, I will give you rules. I would prefer to just say, make a change to the toaster so that it matches your brand language, whatever needs to be done. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. Other things that are, here's a very low hanging fruit, easy to change. Just simply go into these vents, delete this out, and just build whatever vents you feel fits your brand language, right? Maybe it's a bunch of rectangles or something. Well, vents probably wouldn't be that big, but you get the point. Okay, I realize class is suddenly over.